Hello and welcome to another episode of intelliTALKS. My guest for today is my friend Leah McHugh. I hope I got that pronounced correctly. Leah,
Good job.
welcome.
Hi, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. So, Leah, you are from ecommerceChris.
Mhm.
You're one of our partners, our distinct partners, and we're happy to have you here. And we're going to be approaching a very intriguing subject for today. Attention on all Amazon sellers, like let's say ChatGPT is saying all the time, attention Amazon sellers, because we're going to have a very, very important topic that we're going to discuss today on how to optimize the overall performance and how you can drive the brand growth. Also, I have also the team here that has presented a very nice logo on the background, so everyone knows what we're talking about. But I can assure you that we're going to go in depth a bit into very, very sensitive information. But before that, Leah, please tell us a bit about yourself and also what e-commerce Chris is very good at.
Yeah, so I've been in e-commerce since 2011. So
Wow,
I,
yeah.
I hadn't even bought anything on Amazon when I started working in e-commerce. And I've been working with Chris since 2015. So we are most known for our account and ASIN reinstatement work. But we also help brands report abuse if they're being attacked by another seller or if their competitors are acting in an anti-competitive way. And we also work with our clients on a regular basis to manage their account health. So avoiding issues with Amazon, ideally, but if any issues come up, we take care of them for them before it results in an account suspension.
So that's a very nice and proactive way of handling things, because in the end, you don't want to end up with your account suspended,
Right.
especially, when Q4 is coming and all the sales and Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So yeah, everyone
Exactly.
should really be paying attention to the account issues. So yeah, tell us a bit on what, let's dive a bit into the subject, because I'm also an Amazon seller and I'm interested myself. I have my own questions. But
Yep.
first, what would be let's say, the biggest threats you have ever seen when it comes to Amazon selling in general? Like, what are, let's say, the Amazon sellers suffering from?
Well, I guess a suspension would probably be the biggest
The
threat.
worst.
Why they happen, it tends to change over time. Certainly, it is trendy. So if Amazon gets bad press around something, or if a government starts giving Amazon a hard time about something, chances are you're going to see a lot more enforcement about that from the Amazon side. So right now, heading into Q4, particularly in the US, where the FTC is putting a lot of scrutiny on Amazon right now. We're seeing a lot of enforcement around review manipulation and listing policy violations, because a lot of people have been misusing listings in order to make it look like their products have more reviews than they actually do. We also see a lot of product compliance issues, where people generally, actually, the product compliance issues are people are making claims about their products that they're not legally allowed to make. And then I would say the second threat would be anti-competitive behavior. Over the last few years, we've seen such a huge increase in seller on seller attacks that even a lot of our suspension work has some element of a competitor attacking that seller, and that's what resulted in the suspension. So we're seeing a lot more of that anti-competitive behavior on Amazon, even though Amazon is telling everyone that they're doing a great job of getting rid of that element on the marketplace.
All right. Yeah, that's certainly something scary. But
Yeah.
the question would be, how can someone know? I'm thinking now proactively a bit. How can you know when you're under attack? Because a lot of things can happen. They can try to manipulate a lot of things on your listing, maybe change some or add some things in your
Mhm.
fields, or what would be the idea around this one, and how can you, let's say, identify the threat before it ends up with a suspension? I guess this is a very, very important thing for everyone to be on top of things.
Yeah, and it depends on how they're doing the attack. And generally, I do tell sellers, don't assume everything is an attack, because it is very easy to be like, oh, there's nothing wrong with my product, this must be an attack. You do have to make sure that you're checking yourself first. So whatever the attack may be, if it's negative feedback or customer complaints, you do need to actually check your product and check the complaints, because those could be legitimate complaints. And same with, if your listing gets flagged for something, check to make sure that you're not the one that put that information in the listing before you start saying it's an attack. But I do recommend, particularly around Q4, that all sellers use some sort of alert software so they are alerted to any changes made on their listings, because we do see a lot of keyword abuse where people try to get listings flagged as like a pesticide or an adult product or whatever they decide to flag it as. Lots of drugs I'd never heard of before, I'm now very familiar with from this tactic. But also people will move products into incorrect categories to make it more difficult to find. So it's useful to have that alert software, because that's not something that you're necessarily going to notice yourself, particularly if you have a number of listings that you're not necessarily checking every single attribute all of the time. And then in terms of the other sorts of abuse, after you've established that it isn't something on your side, it can be difficult sometimes to tell whether it's abuse or just, a glitch on Amazon side or an error on Amazon side. It kind of doesn't really matter so much, as long as you establish that it's not you and the fault.
Not your fault.
Right. Then it's just a matter of finding that pattern and reporting it to Amazon. And you do need to provide them with some information, otherwise they won't really take action. Like if you're just like, this is wrong, they're not going to do anything. But if you can show them that there is a pattern and then there's a clear issue that isn't being corrected through their teams, they usually will take action. And that's really the main thing, is just being proactive when stuff like this happens. Don't just wait and see how it's going to go, because also a lot of times attackers they'll make like a little change or they'll make a little attack just to see if you're an easy target. And if you don't do anything, or say it's like an ASIN that you're not really that concerned with, so you're just like, oh, I just won't sell that anymore, it makes it much more likely that they're going to come back and attack you again. Whereas if they try to attack you and you immediately correct whatever they did, they're more likely to move on to an easier target.
Depends if you're their main competitor or someone that's depends how much of the market share you steal from them, so to speak.
Yeah, well, so there's different kinds. So there's ones that are really just looking for soft targets and they're looking to hijack those listings. And then there are the ones where it is, they're competing directly against you, and obviously they're much more likely to come back. But again, the harder you make it for them, eventually they'll stop. And also if you keep reporting it, they will ideally get suspended.
Yeah,
so they can't attack anymore.
How do you know? Because we tend to, let's say, it's totally clear about the software. You recommend any softwares here, or yeah?
There's a few different ones. I know 𝗪𝗁 has one that does this. I know Helium-10 has software that does this. Ecom Engine also has software that does this blind-wise. It just depends, because a lot of people are already using these companies' software. Yeah. So depending on your software stack, you have a number of options.
So it's important, maybe some of them or some of us are using the software and haven't been setting up these alerts, because I know I personally am using Helium-10, but the reason I asked you is because a lot of people are using different softwares, but they're not maybe familiar with all the features. So the let's say the hijacker alert, or maybe the listing change, listing modifications that are being done to be also ticked there. So it's probably a small tick that will notify whenever something changes, is a powerful way to be aware of what's happening. I'm curious, is the listing changes? I've heard about the way that attackers are usually, like you've mentioned, adding like a pesticide item or maybe some drugs into your listing that would lead to your listing suspension. Do this software also cover this aspect in terms of highlighting and notifying you that the listing has changed and has one row that's been added, for example? Or
yeah, so most of them will, and you can customize usually when you get alerts, but it'll notify you whenever there's a change. So whenever you get a change notification and it's not something that you're doing, it's worthwhile going in and checking it, because if you catch it early enough, you can correct the listing before you get flagged from Amazon and before that listing gets suspended, which is the beauty of that alert software, because Amazon isn't, all of their flags are algorithmic, so they're not going to catch it immediately. So if you can get it corrected before they flag it, then you save at least a day of a suspended ASIN.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, but How do you know exactly what can get you in trouble? Because, we're not always staying up to date with whatever Amazon is doing in
Mhm.
terms of changing the rules all the time. What would be the best approach into being, again, aware and how to be, let's say, to know everything, or how do you look into this one? Because things are always changing. Amazon is changing the rules. We're not
Mhm.
always aware of them. Yeah.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that a lot of sellers do tell me that Amazon is always changing the rules, and they really don't change the rules that often. They just start enforcing the rules that they already had, which they just maybe weren't enforcing before. Sometimes they'll clarify language, and sometimes if like in the EU they had a antitrust lawsuit and they did have to change some rules there. But generally speaking, they're not really drastically changing the rules on the platform. So the best way to really know what you are allowed to do and what you aren't allowed to do is familiarize yourself with their policies. But then you also need to familiarize yourself with the laws in whatever country you're selling in, and that differs greatly depending on what kind of product you're selling. Some products have a lot more requirements than others, like medical products or supplements or children's products. They have fairly strong regulatory requirements, and those are different in every country. So you do need to familiarize yourself with that information. But in general, my rule of thumb is if you were thinking of doing something and maybe somebody told you it's gray hat, which just FYI, there is no gray hat. There's either black hat or white hat. If it's gray, it's probably black. But also, if you're thinking of doing something and you're like, will I get in trouble for this? I like to ask, if every single seller did what you were about to do, would that be good for Amazon and Amazon's customers? And if the answer is no, they probably don't want you to do it, and it probably is breaking a policy somewhere.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Like, I guess you nailed it, because I was about to ask this, because some people are just going into, let's say, grayish things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's important to actually make sure. And now with all the AI tools, I guess I want to bring this up as well.
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT can really help you understand and maybe summarize some of the rules, or maybe ask based on the number of information that you input into ChatGPT. Ask about a certain if a certain action would break the rules. Would that be something that makes sense in terms of, or not a good way forward?
I mean, it's a start. I've definitely seen ChatGPT give wrong answers.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
so I would use it as part of your plan. Maybe not have it as the entire thing.
But what would be the next step? Because yeah, but myself, let's say if I'm alone in the business and I want to do something by myself, it's okay. But what would be the next step to actually see what's about, or maybe how to prevent my listing from doing some damage and getting my business shut down?
Yeah, and honestly, like I know it's tedious, but honestly, like familiarizing yourself with Amazon's policies is the best way. I would love to say, join a Facebook group or follow these people, but there's a lot of incorrect information on the internet, and you can't look at what other sellers are doing. I like to call it Amazon roulette. I can go to Amazon.com and within about 3 clicks, I can find a policy violation. So you can't look at what other sellers are doing to be like, well, if they're doing it, it must be okay. Like, you really do need to familiarize yourself with the rules. And Chris and I do put out a lot of content about following the rules. But again, particularly around the product compliance side of things, it does differ for every single kind of product and every single marketplace. So it really is on you to know that information. And sometimes with legal stuff you do want to hire an attorney. I very much recommend, if you're hiring an attorney, to hire an attorney who is an expert in that specific area of law. Because I've also seen people get in trouble because they hired not an IP attorney to do their IP, and it was not done well. And similarly, I've seen people hire just a general practitioner for FDA compliance, and that's a very specific area of law, and I've seen mistakes. So you really want to hire people with the expertise in that area that you're looking at in the law.
It's pretty much like medicine. You don't want to get
Right.
an eye exam with a dentist or something.
Right, exactly. You don't want your regular doctor performing surgery on you,
You will be my first client.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant. Yeah. It's people sometimes tend to go over the easiest ways out, but also that's very important what you've mentioned, and thank you for that. I will make sure to include all the links to e-commerce, Chris, there in the description,
Oh, thank you.
so
Yes.
people can follow you. And thank you for putting out all the content and the great content that you do, because it's easy to let's say it's easier to look on social media and follow someone and get the content this way, because our brain sometimes thinks that we're on break and we enjoy the social media rather than going and reading all those long
Yeah,
terms and conditions and everything.
right.
So yeah, it's a matter of how we address things. I'll make sure to include all the links here in the description of this video. Thank you for that. All right, super. How can another question that's popping up into my head?
Yeah.
How can you, let's say, protect yourself from black hat attacks and these bad things that can happen to one's listing?
Yeah, so like I said, the first step would be getting that listing software, so you get the alerts. I do know some larger sellers, and also some sellers with a developer background. They actually set it up so they're pushing their own contributions to their listings every 15 minutes. That's the most often that the API will allow you to do it. And so that way, if anybody tries to make a change to their listings, it gets overridden by their own contributions every 15 minutes.
This is brilliant. Yeah, I love it.
Yes. If you're not a developer, the software could be quite expensive. But if you have a friend that's a developer, it's apparently fairly simple to do. Not my area, but I've been told it's fairly simple if you know what you're doing as a developer. So
exactly.
yeah, so that's a great way of reducing some of the issues here. Certainly, you want to register any intellectual property that you can. So trademark, of course, that gives you access to brand registry and additional protections there. Excuse me. But if you have the ability to file a patent on your product, that's a really great additional form of protection. And also copyright. So any images that you're using on your listing, text that you're using on your listing, registering that copyright can add an additional layer of protection. Say if somebody tries to copy your listing, or I've also seen sellers copyright somebody else's content out from under them and then report them as infringing on their own content.
Whoa.
So worthwhile. Similar with trademarks. I've seen people register trademarks out from under people. So you want to register all of your content as soon as you possibly can, because it gives you additional protection and it also stops somebody else from stealing it from you.
That's incredible. Yeah, people should definitely pay some money to do that, because it's not cheap, and also sometimes trademarks can take a while, like I don't know, 9 to 12 months, depends.
You still have access to brand registry while it's pending, though. You don't have to wait
Yeah.
for it to be approved by the USTPO, but you cannot file an infringement claim while it's pending.
All right.
We've seen people get in trouble for that. Like, you lose access to brand registry forever. So if your trademark is pending, don't file an infringement claim. You don't own that intellectual property yet, so you can't claim anyone's infringing on it while it's pending.
That's very good information. Also, I've heard that a lot of attorneys have been, I don't know, fired or sued by Amazon for bad practices. So what happened there, if you have any other information?
Yeah, so I don't have a whole lot of information about the lawsuit, but there is, if you go to the USTPO's website, and this is American specific, obviously, they have a citations page where you can look up attorneys and law firms by name. And you can see if the USTPO has taken any sort of action against them for bad practices. Amazon's using that list to deny people's trademarks if the attorney has been cited by the USTPO as engaging in some sort of bad practice.
Even though if they're already listed in the brand registry options there with Amazon, what's it called, the IP accelerator?
The accelerator. Yeah. We've even seen, people who've had their trademark enrolled for years have the brand registry revoked recently for possibly this reason. There are like 5 possible reasons as to why they've been revoking brand registry lately, but that is one of the reasons that we have been seeing people getting their brand registry revoked. And unfortunately, what happens with that is that not only is that brand revoked from brand registry, but you're then flagged as abusive. And then anytime that you try to enroll a new brand in brand registry, it'll be denied for being related to an abusive account.
Yeah, that's very bad. So yeah, people should definitely, we actually as Amazon sellers, as business owners, we need to look into things, and every detail counts, because in the end, yeah, it's our business that we're working on. So very important.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, Leah, tell us a bit how e-commerce Chris can help us into this, because yeah, okay, I trust my own strengths, but I'm not that good at everything. So
Mhm.
I do tend to go to professional when it comes to specific areas of the business.
Yep.
Tell us, how can e-commerce Chris can help us? How can it help us do a better job, or I don't know.
Yeah. So in terms of proactive, I mean, ideally, you're coming to us before you have a problem. So proactively speaking,
But
we
you know, people don't go to the doctor unless it hurts. So
right, yeah.
unfortunately,
Well, yeah. So if you have anything suspended, obviously we assist in those cases. But if you're just looking to make sure that you're not going to have issues, particularly going into Q4, where it's just that much more expensive if you have an issue. We do an account review, which is a one-off service. I am actually the only consultant on our team that didn't used to work at Amazon, but all of my colleagues used to be investigators inside of Amazon. So we
there
do
we
account
go.
reviews like
Yeah,
Amazon does. So we would take a look at the account. Part of that account review is a written report where we give recommendations on things that you should be doing to minimize risk and to improve your seller performance on your account. In terms of long-term assistance, we do, like I said, have monthly clients where we're managing the account health for them on a monthly basis. So we're reviewing the account every month. Any issues that do pop up, usually it's because of some sort of abuse. We resolve for them. And if the account were to be suspended, that would be included in the monthly fee as well. But so far, we haven't had any monthly clients get their account suspended, because that's the whole point, right? Is that they're
exactly.
reducing the risk of suspension.
That's incredible. And the fact that you have people there that used to work with Amazon and actually in the investigation area, that's even more intriguing to me, because hey, who knows best the internal Amazon procedures
Right.
than the people that actually, and what to look at, because I can look at the listing, but I do not have the expertise to actually understand what small things to take into consideration and what to monitor. So for that is this way. People should definitely reach out to e-commerce Chris, and yeah, some of the team members there from Leah's team will definitely be more than happy to help with the business. And yeah, it's a tough job, but someone has to do it. Yeah,
Yeah, we take on everybody's stress, but that's what we're here
yeah,
for.
exactly. Brilliant, brilliant, super nice. In terms of let's say what you also are doing, am I understanding correctly that you also have a small present for the everyone that's watching us today?
Oh yeah, so anybody that decides to book a account review, we include a free consultation as part of that, as a gift to say thank you for listening in or watching or wherever you're ingesting this
Definitely.
content.
I will put here the link. I will also add it to the description. It's ecommerceChris/account review. I got that right?
Yep, that's it.
Hopefully, yeah, perfect. I will also add it in the description below of the video. And yeah, Leah, thank you for this. Is there anything else that I didn't ask that you want to touch base on in terms of I don't know, something that would be of interest? I know you have a lot of secrets there, and you don't want to. We could probably use like the entire day to talk about everything that you're doing and all the problems that you encountered and everything that the seller can run into. But what would be, let's say, the number one tip you would give to
Number one
the
tip.
Amazon sellers? Something, yeah, something for them to, yeah, to look, to have in mind, to have in their, let's say, on their daily lives.
So my number one tip is, when you're communicating with Amazon, which inevitably you're going to have to do, you want to make it as concise and to the point as possible. There's a whatever reason sellers really want to tell Amazon how much they love them or how much they hate them. Don't do that. Pretend it's not robots. There's also rumors that you're writing to robots. They're not robots. They are people, but they are trained to act like robots, essentially, and they have a very short period of time in which to read what you're saying and do what you want them to do. So you want to make it as easy as possible for them to do that. Provide exactly the information they asked for. If anything needs a little bit of clarification, add that little bit of clarification. Then add what it is that you want them to do. And that's it. if it's a plan of action, maybe a page. If it's to support or if it's to the compliance team, like half a page. Anything more than that, they're just going to deny because it's too long and they don't have time to read it and take action and stay within their KPIs.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's perfect. And yeah, I love it. I've also ran into this one myself, because back in the day I was writing like a huge story there to tell them how much I enjoy working with them and want to build and thrive my business with Amazon. But it's clear they don't care about
they don't care.
Yeah, thank you very much for being with us and for sharing this information. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to have you. We'll definitely be in touch and maybe capture you in the future for another episode. And yeah, let's see, maybe we can dip into more information in the future. But for now, I just want to thank you and yeah, wish you a great day ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun.